So the last recipe I'm going to show you is another fermentation technique. It's really unusual and fantastic. It's fermenting fruit with honey to make a gorgeous jam that's raw and full of goodness. So what's fun about this is using honey to ferment. So quite often, honey is avoided in fermentation because it has antibacterial properties, which in terms of nutrition are very good for you. But what we do is create this amazing sort of environment where the honey can ferment. And it's something actually the bees kind of negotiate their way around in the hive. So when a bee collects nectar and they bring it back to the hive, they swish it around in their mouths and mix it with all their healthy digestive enzymes, which makes honey a really good natural source of sweetness. They then put it into the cells in the hive and fan off the excess moisture with their wings. This takes about 20 minutes. And they do that so the honey does not ferment once they've capped the cells with their wax. But what we're going to do is create an environment where we put that moisture back in so we do get the fermentation, so we get that extra goodness, and we create this beautiful jam that's completely raw, needs no cooking. You get raw fruit and raw honey, so all the goodness from both, and a really delicious preserve. So we'll just take 2 jars. We have a lovely bowl of blackberries here, but you can actually use any seasonal fruit. So the idea here is to capture those seasonal moments and the seasonal goodness, because eating things in season, which is a really important part of being a natural chef, and eating to the best of your own sort of nutrition and what food has to offer, is eating stuff that's local to you and that's grown in the season that you need to be harnessing. So when you have this, you basically pick it, pop it in here, you're preserving all of that natural freshness and goodness. So we're going to open these 2 jars. Again, they don't have to be sterilized, just really clean and dry. We're going to spoon the jars about half full of berries. So we want them to come up about to here. And just I'll add 1 more. I'm just going to sneak 1 more in there. And we'll just swap that around and do the same with this jar. So you can use multiple jars, as many as you have, to maximize all that gorgeous seasonal fruit. So I've used grated apples before, grated pears or quince. You can use raspberries, you can use citrus fruits, even slices of lemon with ginger and turmeric and black pepper. You get a really lovely medicinal sort of fermented honey. You can use that medicinally or use it in recipes. And so on the course too, we take everything a little bit further and show you how to apply this in lots of different ways. So what we're going to do is get a clean spoon now. So one good thing about preserving is just keeping everything as clean, not cross-contaminating. We're going to just put this honey enough to cover the blackberries, and we're just going to spoon it through to make sure they're fully coated in the honey. So you want about equal amounts of fruit to honey. And you can do this in as big or as small of a jar as you like. But noting that honey is quite a precious food source, so you don't want to be using vast quantities of honey. And also, even though it has lots of benefits to honey, our bodies do still process it like a sugar, so it should be consumed in moderation. So I'm just going to add 1 more spoon. So if your honey is a bit thick, that's fine. You can just put it in a pot of boiling water, just slightly warm water actually. You don't want to heat the honey at all itself, but just put the jar, and that will just soften the honey enough so you can spoon it in if it's really thick. Or even just add a tiny bit of water to it to loosen it. But what's going to happen here is the moisture from the fruit is going to sort of hydrate the honey to a point to where it can ferment. So we're putting that sort of 20% the bees naturally drive off. We're going to put that back, and then you get this lovely fermented product. So you can see here that the honey's almost over the top of the blackberries. We'll add a little bit more, but I'll just spoon this through. So I'm just giving it a gentle mix. I'm not fully crushing the blackberries. It's quite nice to have some bits of fruit, but you can, if you like, just fully mix it up. It's already starting to look a bit jammy. It's really fantastic. So I'm just going to get a clean spoon, so I'm not dipping this back into the jar of clean honey. And I'm just going to add a little bit more honey, just so we get a rim of honey just over the top of that fruit. I'll do the same with this one. Perfect. So just looking in here, you have just a cap of honey coming over the fruit, so the fruit's not popping up too much. And what you do then is you put the lids on your jars. It doesn't need to be airtight. You actually want a little bit of air circulating in there, and that's why I didn't fill the jar completely full of fruit and then completely full of honey. So you do want a bit of air circulating in there, and that will help stimulate the fermentation process. So what do you do now is just leave the jars, again, at room temperature, so that's 18 to 22 degrees Celsius. Leave them at room temperature for 1 to 2 weeks, and what happens is all those lovely juices from the fruit, be it blackberries, grated apples, citrus fruit, will start to leach out into the honey, dilute it enough to where it starts to bubble up and ferment. You'll see little bubbles coming up, and then you can eat it. And you can leave it at room temperature as long as you like, or pop it in the fridge if you want to suspend the fermentation process. So that just slows it right down. It doesn't completely stop it, but it takes it to a point where it's not going to sort of start rapidly fermenting and get really bubbly. So what will happen, you will get some bubbles happening in the jar, and the fruit will kind of mix in with the honey, melt down. It'll get a little bit thinner, but you get this lovely slightly tanginess as well. And what I do over the next few days as it ferments is I just give the jar a little shake just to make sure everything's kind of mixing together. I'll pop the lid off, have a look, that gets a bit more air into it, and then pop the lid back on and leave it to do its thing. So the reason why you do put lids on it, even though you want some air coming through, is just to keep any sort of bees or wasps or insects out of your jars, because they, like us, really love sweet stuff and honey. So we want to keep them out. And that's it, basically. And you have your amazing, raw, full of goodness, fermented honey. Take your learning further by signing up to become a natural chef or vegan natural chef today. Visit our website and sign up to speak with one of our experienced course consultants who will tell you why becoming a natural chef is the right move for you.